Hello, and welcome to Untold Seed Stories, a mini podcast series under our Seed-to-Scale initiative. We at Accel are super proud to partner with some of the biggest companies in the ecosystem which have made a dent in their respective industries. But what we are even more proud of is that we are fortunate to have joined their journeys from very initial days, sometimes even before they put together a team. This partnership helped us greatly in building a first hand perspective on how founders navigate through their early stage challenges. And through the Untold Seed Stories mini series, the idea is to translate some of these learnings to broader audience of founders who are starting out. In this series, we will unravel the first 500 days of few of the most successful startups in India through candid conversations with the founder along with the Accel team member who has been part of the journey from seed days. Hope you find these conversations relevant and helpful to your own startup journey. In today's podcast, we listen to Thirukumaran Nagarajan, co-founder and CEO of Ninjacart, a leading B2B fresh farm produce supply chain company in India, and Subrata Mitra, partner at Accel. Talk about the untold stories from the very early days of Ninjacart, how the founders teamed up, conceived the idea, some lesser known details of how they secured their first funding, and how they went about navigating some of their early challenges. We close the podcast with a fun quiz between Thiru and Subrata to see how well they know each other. I really enjoy this chat and hope you do too. Hey, thanks, Thiru and Subrata, for joining. It's a real pleasure to have you on our new series, The Untold Seed Stories. Welcome.
Thanks, Anand. Yeah.
Yeah, so this is a good thing. We start with Thiru.
Yeah. Okay,
Wonderful.
we'll start with it is. We'll start with Thiru in the series as well as right now. The first question is to you, Thiru. It's a lesser known fact that you've been a founder long before starting up Ninjacart. Can you share with the audience your journey before? What were those? What were you solving there?
Sure. Like post I passed out of my MBA college, I was working in Access Bank. I was primarily working on infrastructure debt syndication. And there I realized that I'm not adding any value to myself and to anyone outside. I just come make some models, put it in a IM, and then circulate it among other banks. That's when I met my roommate, who was like completely restless. What are we doing in life? How things? There are a lot of things happening around the world, and we are sitting and solving nothing. That's when the first time I felt like I should do something out of work. And the first thing we started is we started a CFA coaching institute. So I perceive myself that I'm good in finance. So all the Ashwat Damodar and stuff I was good at. So I thought I can go and teach for CFA students. I started teaching, and then I started a coaching institute. Sooner or later, I realized that most of my time goes into teaching, and that's a very draining experience. I first time realized the value or the hard work of a teacher. So it's very, very difficult to teach. At least even if you teach a day of 4 hours, you are done for the day. Actually, nothing comes to your brain after that. So then I told
Thiru, one of my professors used to tell me, this is in our PhD program, that when you teach something, then you really learn it.
That's true, because when you're teaching only, you realize that when there are some things, there are a lot of gaps in your learnings actually. Then you go back and work on it. But actually, it's a very draining experience. Like you stand there to teach for 4 hours, and you have to have the full energy. Otherwise, the class moral will go down. And so then I realized that it's not scalable. Then I closed down that. Then me and Sharat, who's also a co-founder at Ninjacart, started a biryani cloud kitchen. Biryani is made in cloud kitchens, right?
When was this?
This was in 2011. So,
long before. You were ahead of your time, my friend. Yeah.
So the thing was, when you really start solving a problem in Bombay,
people separately knew the meaning of cloud and kitchen, but not together.
Yeah. So it was like in Bombay, we tried to start a restaurant, but then we realized the cost is so high and we couldn't fund it. Yeah. That's when we went and said, okay, we'll rent a house and prepare and deliver. But we went ahead and faced a lot of problems. Then we realized that the basic thing about starting a cloud kitchen is cook. And if you don't know to cook or you don't know how to get a cook, it's literally not possible to run it. So cook ran away in the first week only. So finally couldn't figure out another cook and end up closing it. And then I realized that it's very important that at least if I'm not able to start up, I'll go and work in some VC firm. None of the VC firm took because I had a debt background. People say people from debt are not risk taking. So they don't take them in VC. Finally found out a job in Avishkar, a social venture capital firm. Then from there, worked there for around 8-9 months. Then started a company called EduRaft. EduRaft is into information about schools, play schools, tuitions, etc. I ran it for a year and a half, and then realized that it is literally not possible to monetize the platform because the parents are not willing to pay, and also the schools are not willing to pay. I don't know, Anand, if you remember, I had a call with you where Anand told Thiru, what do you want to do in life? I asked why. He said, you want to build a very big business and VC fundable business, it's a different thing. Or you wanted to build a lifestyle business. You start a company, it makes like 1 crore, 2 crore revenue, and you're happy with that and you continuing with your life. So you have to answer that first because this business might not scale to be a VC funded business. That's the first time someone told on my face, your business doesn't work. Okay. So
No, it works, but it's a different value proposition.
correct. So the question is, what do I want? Let's say,
Yes.
do I want to build a very big business, or I'm happy with running a small business? That's a question I think I had to answer. So once the moment I answered, I figured out that I should not do EduRaft and I should discontinue and move on. So even if I meet some entrepreneurs nowadays, right, who are starting up, who come and talk to me, the first question I ask him, what do you want? Right, you want to build a big business or you want to build a lifestyle business? That helps you also narrow down on what problem you want to solve, right? So we closed down. Post that, I think that call next day we decided to close down EduRaft. So if you remember,
So one minute there, right? So I think the important thing is neither one is right or wrong. It's what you want in life, right? So and
yes,
also, but if you're building a lifestyle business trying to raise VC money, or the other way around, right? So if you raise VC money and then try to build a lifestyle business,
Now
both
Anand
those
is
are
getting
mismatches.
defensive. He got you to shut down your company.
No. I'm just
I
clarifying. Yeah,
I
yeah.
still remember the date. I had a call with Anand on May 27 and June 3rd we closed down the company.
Oh
Oh
my
man.
God.
Even Ninjacart is named after 63 ideas. It's actually the June 3rd of June we started. So I remember this date very distinctly and remember the conversation with Anand also very distinctly. So then came to post EduRaft. We moved to Bangalore, me and Sharat. And then we worked on again multiple ideas. Like Shout was one idea which we worked on, which is like a location-based information sharing platform. And then post that joined Taxi for Sure. I joined as a head of mobile products. That's the first place I learned really how to build a what do you say, a startup. Like previously, whatever I was doing was like I never even realized that it's a startup. So the learning in Taxi for Sure was very immense. And one of the key things that I learned in Taxi for Sure is how to build a culturally what do you say. I don't know how to put it in words. It's like people in Taxi for Sure, even if someone would have offered them like twice or thrice the salary wouldn't have left. That there is something in that which made people believe that Taxi for Sure is not a company. It's like it's my own kind of a feeling. It always used to be. So that is something which I learned, and that is something which I learned from Raghu, and continue to do that in India also. So then post Taxi for Sure, we didn't want to continue going forward once Taxi for Sure was sold to Ola. That's the time we thought what to do. Then we took out Shout and modified that into a location-based e-commerce application. That's what Ninjacart is, and that's how the journey started actually.
Got it. So I want to come back to you on how that journey started, but before that, maybe just walk us through your headspace. How were you thinking? What was your motivation for starting up again? You had tried all this that had not worked, right, or not scaled big, and then you went through this journey. Just because many listeners are probably going through various aspects of thinking through and motivation to start up.
So, Anand, there are multiple things, right? You use the word journey. So, I used to say this. There is a Hindi movie. In almost all the meetings, I say this. Maybe people will be bored of that, but that is something which is wonderful, right? The journey should be more beautiful than the destination, right? There is this suffer kubsurat manzil se. I don't know you understand this. It was in one of the movie "Ye Dil Hai Mushkil." It comes.
सफर खूबसूरत तो मंजिल
Safar खूबसूरत है मंजिल से भी. That journey is more
मंजिल
beautiful
से
than the
भी ओके
destination. Okay, I don't know whether I'm pronouncing it right. I have
नहीं
a
नहीं
problem
that
with my Hindi pronunciations.
yeah that's good
Yeah.
You
So
know a lot more Hindi than me, my friend, so go for it.
yeah.
सफर
So
खूबसूरत है मंजिल से भी
Yeah.
right
yeah.
yeah
Yeah. So the point is, it was I was never worried about my destination, right? Where am I going? What am I doing and stuff. Every day I come to work, I need to enjoy the work, right? That is the key, and that journey kept us motivated and going. So you go to work for someone. If someone gives you the feeling that you are a owner and empower you to do things like that, then whether you start up, you don't start up, it doesn't matter, right? But that thing I never found in all organizations, right? Only in taxi for sure I found that. And post that, I was not willing to look at another organization which could give me that. I thought like maybe why don't I start doing it again? So I also realized two things, right? When I started EduRaft, I know what mistakes I made in terms of the idea, the sector, or the what do you say, the segment that we are operating in. And the other thing is also I never understood how to build large teams, how to keep going faster. In EduRaft, 1 year, if I sit and think what I did, I actually did nothing. But in Taxi for sure, 2 months, there were like 10 years of work that happened. Okay, that's the kind of work that happened there. So I learned a lot and figured out like this time if I give it a shot, I'll be definitely able to pull it off. Is what I felt, and that's how we went ahead and started. So yeah.
Ninjacart. Yeah, great.
and
Subrata,
even
so
within Ninjacart, Anand, if you look at it, new ideas web in and web out very very quickly. The
okay.
ones that make sense stick and are iterated upon, and the ones that don't make sense are quickly weeded off. So I think that's one of the big virtues of this team. And before into this one.
Got it. Cool. So I want to get into that in greater depth, but before that, Subrata, how did you meet Thiru? Walk us through that.
Yeah. So our friend Raghu was the connect, right? So when I think what was happening was there was this taxi for sure, acquisition dinner that I had gone to, and then I never used to attend many of the TFS meetings, so I didn't know most of the guys there. So Raghu and we started chatting, and I asked him, what else is going on. Are there interesting teams coming out and doing stuff? And then because of Zopna already had an interest in sort of the groceries and the local space, so Raghu connected me, and that's how we came to know of each other.
Got it. So Thiru, coming back to you, did you walk us through finding the co-founders? Did you find the co-founders first or the idea first?
Co-founders first is what. So when I started EduRaft, right, I was very particular about how much stake I hold in the company, right? The first time entrepreneur always wants to preserve the ownership kind of stuff. So I never was willing to take so many co-founders or take anyone into the 14 types, holding on saying I should hold 70% of my company type. When EduRaft was closed, I came to a realization that it doesn't matter if you are a owner, you are 100% owner of a 1 crore company, but what matters is you are 1% owner of a $1 billion company. So, and $1 billion companies are large companies, right? So I answered your question. The
Yeah.
answer I found out is I want to build a substantially large company, not really a lifestyle company. The moment I decided that, I felt like large companies cannot be built by one person. I also carry this thing in my heart, and I still believe that most of the big conglomerates in India are actually family-driven conglomerates, right? Successful company started by individual and working along with the team was never a big story in India. Let's say you talk about the Tatas, Reliance, the Aditya Birlas, thing, right? They are all like family-driven companies. That's because there's a lot of trust that goes into a family, and collectively people are able to build a large business. Because integrity is a big problem actually. So I said that it doesn't matter I own 100% of the company. I need to have a team who will be like my family. I didn't have brothers to start with, so I thought I will build my brotherhood first, who will come along with me to build a company on my own. So that was always my first intention. So me and Sharad are very close friends. thick and thin, right? I can speak anything to him and he can speak anything to me types, and we take it in the right way. So we went on building a team which will be like that. I said it's not a team; it's like a brotherhood. So in Ninjacart also, like the brotherhood has become so big. That's why even if someone today wants to hire someone from keep people from Ninjacart, they can never do that. So that's because it's they are not employees for us. They are like they are the gang, the clan, or the brotherhood types, right? So I was very sure about that. Whether you have an idea, you don't have an idea, whether it works, it doesn't have work. You need to have a team which can stick together and build it together. So
And these co-founders, all from Taxi for Sure, or yeah, Sharath you mentioned, and yeah,
So Sharath was my classmate from IMK.
yeah,
So from IMK we are together. In fact the biryani setup we did, and whatever we did post that. In fact, once we started thinking we should make a barbecue kitchen, so we tried that also. We tried multiple things. Sharath was there from throughout the journey, and then. Uh, KK and Vasu are from Taxi for Sure. So that's where we both met. And then Ashutosh or Sachin are from a common floor. So we all used to hang together, and that's how the relationship sort of developed. We are very sure from day one that if you have a good team who are ready to execute well, idea is something we'll keep iterating. So
got it.
the team came first before the idea.
Before the idea, I want to come to the idea in a minute, but before that, looking back, the ecosystem has evolved quite a bit. How should someone look through an ideal co-founding team? Maybe Subrata, we can start with you. Yeah,
See, the way I look at it is, this trust factor is obviously very, very important. And if you go back and look at, what we built at Accel, it's on similar grounds. So the set of partners that we have, I think the beautiful thing that we share is our trust of each other and how we enjoy, working with each other, right? So the fact that we are not going to the office right now, I think the biggest challenge is that we don't get to meet face to face with some of the people there at Accel. So that's very central and important. Outside of that, if you could get some complementarity of skill sets, that's probably the second thing that you look for, right? So, and even if you don't have that to start with, people's ability to learn new things and sort of make sure that whatever problem exists needs to be solved, and not one person can solve everything. So how do you sort of decentralize that and get people to go address the real issues and get them resolved quickly? I think if you have those two things, I think that's a very good starting point.
Thiru, anything you'd like to add? And also the dynamics of having 5 co-founders, both those ideal co-founding team and 5. Yeah,
So actually, I would like to put or divide the startup journey into like 2-3 phases. The one is the 0 to 1, 1 to 10, and 10 to 100. Right. It's always very great to have a 5 or even 10, 20 co-founding team if possible when you are in 0 to 1. Whereas you get hands-on solving the problem, you have to pay attention to every small details, why it is happening like that, how to change it, and keep things moving. So 0 to 1 is about identifying the problem and finding solutions. 1 to 10, you figure out whether the solution you are giving is working or not, and how to find the right. If we have to put in the industry parlance, it's like do you have product market fit? And then the last phase is primarily the growth phase, right? 10 to 100. Right? That's a very different phase. So what I see is right. If you have a lot of co-founding team, it's very easy to do the 0 to 1 and the 1 to 10. Right, post 10 to 100 is actually the phase where you start that whether all the guys are able to scale to the level, because the company is scaling much faster than we could scale. For example, even I go through a lot of challenge to figure out how to manage things because the company is growing much faster and the problems and also growing much faster than I could think, or I as a person I could scale, right? So at that point, a lot of people go through a lot of challenges, And as a co-founding team, the one thing which I really felt, which Ninjacart co-founders carry, which helped us to stay together and keep growing, is we are egoless and we are ready to accept the fact if things don't work out, it don't work out, and then we have to get people who can work it out for us, and not really have the egos to say that I will can only boss around but not really work with people. For example,
Mm.
most of the key positions in Ninjacart are done by people who are not co-founders, and co-founders are ready to work along with them or for them to solve problems. And we don't have any sort of egos to say that, hey, I'm a co-founder, I can only lead. Right? We don't. Everyone doesn't want to carry the CXO title. They're ready to be there. No title. Like we are okay to be titleless until unless there is a growth for the company and there is a person who is ready to lead us and take us to the next step. Right? If you are able to get a co-founding team who could put the company first and not themselves, right? That's when it works. Let's say if you get a co-founding team, initially everything looks rosy, you are growing, things are changing fast, and you are solving problems. But there could be a moment where you feel like out of, let's say you have 10 co-founding teams, 3 are scaling along with the company faster, 3 are like almost there, but we need some guidance, 3 are not able to scale, right? Then at that point, you have a honest conversation with them saying that, hey, this is what you are doing, this is working well, this is not working well, so how can you add more value with this? So for example, in some cases, like some people are extremely good in 0 to 1. No one can replace them in 0 to 1 and 1 to 10, but let's say they cannot do 10 to 100. So can you have a conversation and keep the guys get to ground and say, okay, now we still might have a lot of 0 to 1 problems, so you guys work on that. Okay, you might not lead large teams, you might be working with 4 5 members, but you are also doing a very important thing for your company, right? So if you are able to have that conversation, the co-founders are ready to appreciate that and put the company forward and think and take it further. That is what is expected, and I am very very lucky to have that kind of a people with whom I can have a very candid and open conversation. I need not hide behind to think like what this person might think if I say this, right? The moment you have this doubt, he's definitely not
Mhm.
your co-founder, right? Whatever you feel, you have to say, even if it is right or wrong, because the guy is not going to take it personally. He understands that Thiru as a person who's my friend or whom I spend time is very different from the Thiru who is now working for Ninjacart as a CEO type, right? So if people are able to differentiate that and then take the feedback or ready to work along to put the company forward, that is very important, and lucky we are lucky to have that kind of a team.
Got it. Put the company first and no egoless, and some have this discussion that some of us might not scale, and we'll need to bring in professional management down the road or other, and be open to that. Whether most likely not in the 0 to 1, not in the 1 to 10, but beyond that phase,
Correct.
right?
So even we used to funnily say that tomorrow, if I'm not able to scale and we need to get someone to lead the company from there, I should be very happy to do that and not really stick around saying that this is the company, I should be the CEO. That doesn't matter, right? So what matters is the company first, and we are very clear about that from day one, and that's very
It's
important as a
theoretically
co-founding.
beautiful. Practically, is it possible to do these? Like, have you had these conversations and brought in professional management? I know it's a tough
So
question. Yeah, yeah.
So, Anand, the fact is right.
Yeah.
So there was one point of time in life that where I was left with 500 rupees and there was no support from my family to move forward, and I moved to Bangalore. Okay, so I've come from a point where I had nothing. So for me, it is no more about myself. It's more about what I'm trying to build. That is very important, right? Because if I destroy whatever I built by being very self-centric, then like I think we have reached that maturity level is what I believe.
Mm.
Maybe 5 years down the 5 years before, I wouldn't have been this.
Mm.
I would have been like, I should do it. I will do it kind of a stuff. Right now, I largely believe that I will try to do it with my best honest efforts. But if that is not possible, and if there is someone who can do it better, I should get him and make him win. That is very critical. Even if you talk to one other co-founders, KK, who is a COO, he continuously keeps saying that my biggest success is if I could replace me in this company.
Mm. Got
Right?
it. Last question on this co-founder thing. How do you think about equities? Right. So there are different principles. Any guidance from your side for people who
So
are going
actually,
through this?
yeah,
Mm.
I have a rule book, and maybe that rule book was given to me by Raghu. So what happened was, when we started Ninjacart, right, we never wanted to have the equity discussion among the co-founders because we felt like we don't know who's going to contribute to what and who's going to contribute in the future. So we don't really know how that is going to work. So we came up with a concept that when we raise our first institutional capital or formal money from outside, each one will be distributed 100 rupees. Okay, and this 100 rupees you have to distribute to other co-founders except you. Okay, and then in what ratio each one has got, that will be the ratio of shareholding in the company. I don't know if you got it right. Let's say if I get 100 rupees, I'll distribute to the remaining 4 people the 100 rupees. Similarly, everyone will do that. And whatever ratio the people hold, that will be a ratio which will divide the company. But then when we really went ahead and there was a meeting, as you remember, where Abhinav asked, okay, Thiru, let's give you a term sheet. What is your shareholding? We said like, okay, give me a day back. We'll go and figure that out. In fact,
We
we
have to
haven't
get a
even
few
formed
hundred
the
rupees here.
company.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's when we went to. Then I thought like, money is not what we are doing everything, and we should divide it on a equal basis. Let's say 20. We are 5 people. 20 will divide, and everyone should be okay about it. And everyone was okay about it. Then I went and told Raghu that Raghu, everyone we divided into 20, and that's what we want to tell Accel. Raghu said, see, with all the learnings I carry through, this is what I advise to all the teams. Okay, the CEO should hold a higher shareholding. And then we should also create a MSOP pool because he said everyone is not going to scale the same way in the future. Right, you create a MSOP pool for the remaining co-founders, and this has to be distributed to them in a future date depending on how they scale and perform. Right, so then we came back, we sat together, and then I told them, see, this is what Raghu told, we're going to do this. Everyone accepted. Then I said, I'll stay out of the discussion. You guys decide what will be the holding I should have. Once that is decided, the rest will divide it into 5 parts. 4 parts for 4 of you guys, and 1 part is MSOP. And that's how we structured the company actually. So that worked out well actually. So to whomever I meet, I tell them, right, you guys can have equal, whoever comes to me, I tell them like the CEO should hold higher shares. You guys decide how much you are going to give to the CEO. That also shows how important we see in the scheme of things. And the other thing is the remaining, let's say you have 2 co-founders, make it 3 portions. 2 you allocate to yourself, 3 you leave it as an MSOP.
Got it. Subrata, any comments on that?
So I guess, Raghu and I, we have had some, what should I say, back and forth on this part that was MSOP that was open. Because the way I was looking at it is, you are allocating this at a time where the company's maturity is very different from when they had started. So should that include senior management or not? Raghu, Thiru, you remember that?
Yeah.
And then of course, we went back to whatever they had agreed because that was part of the original agreement. So I didn't want to, change anything that these guys had agreed on. But that was one comment that, or a discussion that we had between Thiru and myself. But I think this is actually a good way to do it, because clearly we see this often enough that, people end up having different skill sets, motivations. After you have worked at it for 4 years, do you want to do it for another 4 years? And so, in fact, I've almost subtly started telling a similar model to some of the new companies that I'm working with now.
Yeah, this is a very interesting way of looking at it. I'd love to brainstorm offline on this a little bit more and maybe share it more widely. So now we are already gone into the topic of fundraise. Maybe let's talk through your first meetings with each other. So the idea of this whole series is to bring out more in-depth stories of the various pivotal moments of the startup. So one such thing is finding your first institutional investor, and for the institutional investor, finding the entrepreneur, right? So we already know how you met, but Thiru, do you remember the first meeting with Subrata and any memories from there?
Yeah. So I can never forget this, right? So if you remember, first Raghu wrote an email to Subrata. I read this mail so many times because then Raghu wrote that Subrata, these are the guys who have worked and made a great difference in taxi pressure. right?
Yeah.
That's how he introduced. And then Subrata was a great figure at the time, right? Say, Flipkart doing great and a lot of things, right? So meeting Subrata is like a lifetime opportunity. Whether he's putting money or not is different, but meeting him itself is a
Thank you,
great
Thiru.
opportunity.
By the time we are done, I'll say the reverse. Okay.
So actually, I took one day to draft a 3-line reply to that mail to Subrata. Right, that's the seriousness we put in, and then I used to even have an email ID called ntk@gmail.com. Raghu said, "Dude, this email ID cannot introduce you to Subrata. You have to create an email ID with Thiru@ninjacart.com. This is the exact email ID I want. With that only I'll do introduction." So it took me one day to figure out that. So we started a company without registration, without domain, nothing. We just started, right? And then we got introduced. And Surya said, okay, let's meet this week. And I'm traveling next week, so let's meet this week, he said. So we called Abhinav and stuff to figure out how to meet. We couldn't find a slot during the day. And then on a weekend, Abhinav said, Subrata might be okay to meet you in his home, but I'll let you know. So I think it was a Saturday morning at 10:30. Abhinav called and said, Subrata is ready to meet at 2 o'clock today. I think 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock in the evening today at his home in JP Nagar. We were like, oh, we didn't even prepare what to do. We have got such a nice opportunity, but we don't know what to do. Raghu said, see, you need not prepare anything. Go and tell what you want to do to Subrata. That Subrata wants to understand. Maybe even if you prepare a deck and go, Subrata will try to talk to you and figure out what you want to do and rather not go through deck. So we didn't prepare a deck and all. So we said we'll go
and he didn't prepare a deck for like what, 2 years?
Yeah, till we raised a series B, we didn't prepare a deck actually. So
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
uh,
Now I know what. So I asked Subrata, do you have the early deck of Thiru's so that I can look at it while I prepare for this? Yeah, we looked, and now we know where to find it.
what happened was we went to Subrata's home and it was like we didn't try to explain the idea, nothing. We just opened our app saying, "This
And
is our app."
little bit of surprise because I didn't know there were 5 of them.
Yeah.
So I was expecting like 1 or 2 people to show up.
Yeah.
And then I had told my wife Sagrika that these guys will come, maybe some tea or coffee or something like that. So now one after the other, Panch Murti
It's like that IPL ad. My friends are
okay,
coming in. Yeah.
because normally I sit in my the cozy little office, and we didn't have 5 chairs there, so we had to sit in the living room, the dining table. So you remember we sat around the dining
Yeah.
table.
And then there was like, we pulled out this mobile and we started showing Shubhata, it's very simple that there is an app in which you can place an order. There is an app in which the order comes you have to fulfill. And then we gave a demo of that app and there were questions around mostly what we used to do before and how do we think about going forward, etc. And there are like one thing which I remember very distinctly, Subha said is, even most of my well-funded startup doesn't have these kind of apps. So that was the time when things were moving away from the web-based things to app-based things, right? And we never had any web-based things. Everything we made was an app because I could code in. I am an app developer, so I learned coding for starting up. So I made I didn't learn the web part. I started with the app. So everything I make in apps. When let's say people come and say we wanted to track these numbers, ideally it's very easy to make it in a web. I used to make it in an app and give because I knew only that. So Subha said, even everything like, when an order comes, how many orders are fulfilled, not fulfilled, everything is an app. Okay. Then he was like, your tech is very strong. And me and KK both were able to code. So that is it. And at the end of the meeting, only he sort of told, see, Thiru, there are two things that is there. One, you are trying to help Kirana stores sell. We also have another company which is trying to help the Kirana stores deliver. We also have another company which is in groceries. Now I have to figure out among these three how I will be able to build a story in this ecosystem, kind of a stuff. I don't remember the exact words, but he said like, we have a hyperlocal delivery network. We have a person who's enabling Kirana store to do hyperlocal stuff, and we also have another company, Oxford, which is doing groceries at that point, like regular planned groceries, and not really unplanned. We need to figure out how to do, but we are largely excited about the team, and we would like to move forward. That's what Subrata told in the first meeting, and we came out and we are like extremely happy because we thought it could be bad because before that meeting. We met a lot of people and everyone said that it is not possible to fundraise for this idea because at the time Grofers and Pepataf have reached quite a significant amount of capital and we didn't know that. Only after starting up we knew that. And then we met Subrata and Subrata said like, yeah, it's good. We will be, if I could find a way out, I will be interested is what he told. And then we were excited and came out and I remember the meeting, like every inch of that meeting.
Nice. Subrata, anything to add from that first meeting?
No,
From
no.
your side?
I think it was actually very impressive because I was looking at people who had come from Taxi for Sure, and very quickly they had sort of understood, how to go after a slightly different significantly different market opportunity, and then build out both the sort of the consumer app as well as the sort of the retailer side app. And both sort of worked well in unison with each other. So I think that as a first meeting for a company which was just starting out, this is actually pretty impressive. So that's what I told them.
Got it. Okay. So, so Subrata, in this case, you already had another grocery investment, which was consumer, and this also was a different angle there. So
Yeah.
going in, you might have known that there are all these apps, but maybe one of these will scale, not all of them.
Yes.
How did you think through that aspect? Yeah.
That was actually a tricky decision, and which is why I think it took us some time as well. I think we were never sure, and how expensive some of these consumer companies are, and how much money that you have to raise and all that. And then we already knew Grofers had actually raised a bunch of money by that time. So that was actually the crux of the decision, that how do you, one, fit all of these together, and two, is there room for multiple such players in the ecosystem? I think what few meetings later, what sort of swayed in was just Thiru and the team's ability to sort of execute. And then we probably had a discussion saying, maybe 6 months from now we'll not be doing exactly this, but let's go figure out what we want to do, because I really loved the team and the way that how dynamic they were in sort of moving things forward quickly.
So for the audience who don't know, at that time, Ninjacart was doing what exactly, Thiru, from a consumer angle?
So the initial idea was we will create a network of Kirana stores, brand them, help them with deliveries, and also try to slowly start helping them with the purchase of everything that they sell. So that's what we started with. But let's say 2 months into the journey, we suddenly saw the delivery space picking up very fast. So we started focusing more on the hyperlocal delivery. But at the same time, we were trying to understand what kind of supplies the grocery stores need, what are the pain points that they have, and then figure out vegetables and fruits the biggest pain point, and started buying and selling vegetables and fruit from the market to the stores, and also enable the stores to sell these items to the end customer through deliveries. So that's what we
So I want to
started up
come to
with.
that, the larger problem that Ninja is solving today. But before we get there, so Subrata, so you could see as an investor that there are these two legs of the businesses at least, and then one might take off and the other might not. So you could have,
Didn't know enough about sort of the supply side of things to know necessarily. We had Dilip in our mix,
yeah,
and he at least understood, how the margin structures for some of these things were, and I think what he told us is, that fresh and fruits and veggies are probably the one place where there'll be reasonable amount of margins, and everything else might be sort of cutthroat unless you private label. And this, Dilip knew like the back of his hands, and I at least saw that there was this one angle which has a potential, but I would have been, I didn't even bet that would work out. It was more of a good team, which has done something completely different before, and their ability to learn something new and be very, very productive and fast moving. So we thought that if we work with the team, we'll actually emerge on an idea that would make sense.
Got it. So it was more a bet on the team and their execution capabilities, and saying
Absolutely.
that they will figure out along the way,
or we will collectively figure something out.
Figure out as a team.
So it was, yeah.
Yeah. Anything else from this phase and the fundraise phase? If not, I wanted to chat about the next phase of the next few 100 days. Or
So,
yeah.
so what really happened was post the investment, right? We like when I think we got the money in August 2nd, I think. Whenever I met Subrata, right, I will try to show the numbers of hyperlocal stuff, saying that it's really doing great. These are the numbers we are growing. This versus we versus the competition where we stand, all of that. I used to get so disappointed because Subrata will not even go through those numbers. Then you sit like, okay, you were buying and selling vegetables to the stores, right? Explain that. So every time I used to explain, okay, this is where I buy, this is what the margin, this is how the market works. I used to tell the learnings. And every time I meet, we had to go through it multiple times to understand because it's such a complex thing. And Subrata used to spend a significant amount of time understanding that rather to even ask me a question on how this hyperlocal thing is working. So from day one, he was very sure where the company is heading.
No, at least between the two, I had my sort of, the right hat on. But it was not like that might be the only thing that we'll end up doing. But I definitely felt that the consumer stuff, we will get into margin issues and a lot of other logistics related issues.
So let's talk through about that phase. You then made within the first few months itself, you made a pivot, right? Talk through how that happened. Yeah.
So it was a very logical thing for us, Anand. Let's say, for example, I think from August onwards, we started buying vegetables and fruits and giving. On the hyperlocal stuff, we were growing and growing and growing, but it's all funded by discounts, is what I believe. So, at one point of time, me and my co-founders had a big fight. They were like saying that we should focus heavily on building out the B2B network and not really the hyperlocal stuff. The KK once came and told, I really don't understand whether you are solving a problem or you are a discounting company. So KK got so pissed off and he started calling Ninjacart as a discounting company. There is no innovation. There is nothing great we are doing. We built a tech which takes orders from one platform, putting it in another platform, and we keep on discounting it. And we are not really solving a problem. So one day we then sat together to listen to all the problems call center, like we were sitting in the call center to understand what the customer calling and what they are saying, right? So there was a very interesting problems. We figured out that the customer has ordered atta, which is primarily the important thing for what he is placing an order. And then he said 250 rupees ke liye free delivery. So he added all the biscuits, chips, namkins, and everything. And finally, we figured out atta is not there, and we delivered everything else apart from the atta. The customer was so furious at us, and then we sat together to see like. Whatever KK said made a lot of sense, right? We are not really solving a problem, and most of the guys who are, if you see, right, the biggest problem is we used to sell like 30% of our orders are actually butter and ghee. Right, a normal consumer will not consume this much of butter and ghee. Then we figured out that most of the bakeries are buying butter and ghee from us because we are giving discounts. Okay, so it was like eye-opening thing for us. Then we went and told, okay, one day we'll do an experiment that we will give a 5% lesser discount than a competitor, and one day we'll give 5% more discount than a competitor. Okay, it's not like I'm not giving discounts. I'm giving discounts, but 5% lesser discount than a competitor and 5% more discount than a competitor. Right? Our sales dropped by 50% when we gave 5% lesser discount. That means the competitor gave 20%, I gave 15%, but my sales dropped by 50%. The day I gave 5% more, and my sales grew by 35-40%. Right? So then I realized that. People are not buying for any of the problems that I'm solving, and people are buying just for the discounts I'm giving. On the other hand, let's say there was a very, it's a very thing. There is a supermarket, very big supermarket in Bangalore. We went and tried to convert him. We pitched. He didn't even respond. Finally, he took a 10 rupees out from his pocket and said, "This is the maximum I can do for you. Take this 10 rupees and run away." Okay. So that guy called and said, "Hey, I want vegetables and fruits. Can you supply? I heard you are supplying." And so that is like that's when we said. The fruits and vegetables is a pain point we are solving, and people are ready to pay for it. And this is something where I'm actually see. The point is, there are people who are ready to. There will be people who will be ready to pay for a convenience, but we should deliver whatever they want. But inventorizing or digitizing the inventory of a shop is the most difficult thing, and you cannot gain a premium out of it, right? And the shopkeeper doesn't want to maintain his inventory online.
And this is where, I guess Thiru came to know later, but Mukri, Zopnao, that is the other problem they were trying to solve. Not for small kiranas, but for large format stores. So they were working with More and some of these other huge, 10,000 square feet kind of layout stores. And even there, it was like less than 90% fulfillment, because at least 10 to 15% of the stuff that people order will not be available at that time that you go for pickup. So I could imagine how hard it would be to kind of synchronize for kiranas the same information.
So we even tried a bit. We tried of putting a pause, making the kirana stores digitized, try to digitize some 2-3 kirana stores with pause. It's literally not possible, and the money burning is becoming crazy. So we believe that maybe grocery should be a business which has been solved through an inventory-led model. And maybe that is something we don't want to do it now. But on the other hand, we figured out another problem, which is the supply chain of vegetables and fruits, where we could see there could be a lot of problems that exist which could be solved, and a lot of hard problems that could be solved. Then we thought we should go there. At that time also, we also came to a realization, even if someone I meet, I tell them, right, only solve problems which are hard to solve. Okay, and second, you solve a hard problems which can be monetized. There is no point in solving a hard problem, but people are not ready to pay you. So that also is not addressable. And if the problem is very easy, then it becomes a fundraising game. So you better don't be there because you don't know when you will die. So solve a hard problem and also figure out that it's definitely a pain point for which people are willing to pay. So this is like the two things that I learned during the process, and these are the two important points based on which we made the pivot. He keeps it and again asks me to iterate it. So he goes very deep into things, and he's not like like it's like sometimes you get like how many times will you ask me this question types, because he goes very deep. Like so, the number of times I explained him vegetable and fruit supply chain, at least 100 times I would have drawn in the Accel meeting room. 100 times I would have drawn the supply chain and explained, saying, okay, this is the margin, that is the margin. Okay, again, how this will work, that will work. And again, he'll take notes diligently, he'll take notes, right? And then he'll again come next meeting and say, okay, repeat everything. And then on top of that, we'll build. So he was very deep into things. Okay, maybe that sometimes irritates you, but that's like teaching also, right? Let's say sometimes it makes you, identify the gaps in your learning also.
So it's like, I think from my perspective, because these guys were learning, and I think the way that they were attacking the problem was actually shifting a little bit. So to me, it was not sounding like exactly like the last time. So I just wanted to make sure that we had it fully nailed. Exactly what are the inefficiencies that we are trying to take care of. So that may have been a little anal.
But we wanted to hear the same consistent story. Now your turn.
Every time we tell it differently. So he's like, it's not what I heard.
And the other thing, his pet peeve, which he didn't tell you, was I wouldn't ask him to grow faster. So he comes and tells me, had you asked me to grow faster, I would have actually grown faster. But you never asked.
Till today, Subrata has never asked me what's your growth percentage, what's your plan for next quarter and stuff. His most of the questions will be around what problems are you solving it better, right? That is one thing, right? So I meet a lot of our friends in startup ecosystem who says that, okay, the board is very particular about are you growing 10x, are you growing what speed and stuff. Till now, none of the members of the board ever asked at what rate are you growing, at what speed you are growing, and they were very happy with the kind of decisions I took. That's also another frustration, right? Maybe they should challenge, but they were like largely happy. Let's say I went and told that I'm going to shut down Horeca. Horeca is hotels, restaurants, and catering. Okay, and that contributed to 40% of the business. I went and told we're going to shut down modern trade. That contributed to 10% of the business. That's primarily after raising a 5.5 million from Accel and Nandan. I went and told this. And to add to that, Nandan, who came newly on board, was also okay for it. Like Subrata is also okay, Nandan is also okay. They're like, okay, so if that is the right thing for the business, you should do it. And we like it. You think about it, right? We raised the round, and immediately we degrew by 50%. but the board was very happy with the decision, and they were like never asked the question like, are you growing fast or not growing fast? They only say like, are we solving the right problem? And if we have to really build a large sustainable business, what all we should do to get things right? That was the focus rather than growth. And they believe that if we do this right, that will happen.
Got it. Subrata, to you, Thiru's one quality that impresses you the most.
I think he talked about it at the beginning. I mean, their impatience of getting things done. I think that's wonderful. And the good thing is, in their impatience, they don't necessarily cut corners. You know, they will find out first the fastest way to get there, but then slowly figure out what is the right way to get there as well. So I think that combination is actually very good.
Great. Thiru, quick, now we'll quick to move to rapid fire so that we can wrap up. So, Subrato's one advice that you would always remember.
So build it right is what he always says, right? You make a mistake, that's fine. Admit it, change it, and always build it right. So, and he also stood by whatever he advised. So whenever I said this is a mistake I made, there was one point of time where we went and told we have to define all our metrics. There are some metrics which he reported was wrong. Okay, so I have the courage to tell him, because he always said like, if you make a mistake, correct it, and the sooner you correct it is better. So always supportive of that also. Like whatever he used to say, he used to be supportive of that, and that gave me a lot of comfort with him to actually tell whatever I feel like. Right? When people sometimes say that you cannot be that transparent with your board or your investor, but I used to say whenever I hit a problem, the first thing is like, tell Subrata that this is a problem that's going to come. And I always had that comfort, and that is something which I always appreciate, and that's an advice he used to give, and I follow that to my team also.
Good. Subrata, Thiru's first tough decision or an early tough decision as a founder, and how did he navigate through that?
No, I think this whole changing and dropping that part of the business which was supposedly sexy, and going after the one that was grungy and difficult to implement. I think hats off, right? I mean, this is still a young team. I never thought it would be that easy. I mean, they did the decision on their own.
Awesome. Thiru, how difficult, like we have this challenge, so I think it comes from the Accel team as well. How difficult is it finding time with Subrata for you?
Actually, I never faced any challenges in finding time. So initially, when I met Subrata, I used to think like I should not disturb him. He's a busy guy and all that. The one thing he always made sure is he made sure that I am comfortable conversing with him. So he actually helped a lot with that. Is what I felt like. Initially, if I used to message to Subrata, I will rehearse the message 20 times, see the grammatical mistakes and stuff. Nowadays, I used to type as if he's good old friend types. I don't even think, I just type and send. When only I figure out there is.
Man, you're calling me old there, yeah?
Yeah. Good old friend.
Good old friend.
Last question.
Finding time was never a problem, right? If he is not able to meet in his office, I don't know how many times I visited his home actually.
Yeah.
So
he's
it is
working
like
even Sundays, man. Makes me feel all days.
So most of our meetings happen Sunday in his home, actually.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Cool. So the last one. Would you believe if we say our sources at Ninjacart have found Thiru sleeping on the floor in his office on several occasions at night after office hours?
And completely believable. If you would have told me that he's not doing it, I would have actually been disappointed.
Awesome. Good, guys. Thanks for joining. This has been a lot of fun walking through all the journeys. Thank you, Thiru. Thank you, Subrata. Yeah.
Thanks, Anand.
Thanks, Anand.
Yeah, this is going to be a great new series for us. And Thiru, thanks for doing it for us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Thiru.
Thanks, brother. Thanks, Anand. Yeah.
Pleasure.
Bye.
Hope you enjoyed that chat with Thiru from Ninja and Subrata. They took us through the journey of building Ninjacart in its early days. The story shows the persistence of founders, getting the brotherhood right of co-founders, their first meeting with Accel, and most important of all, the big pivot. We hope you liked this podcast and got something new to learn from it. If you have some feedback, let us know on Twitter at Accel_India and visit us at SeedToScale.com/insights. Don't forget to subscribe and share the podcast with your friends who are thinking to build a startup. Our next episode in this series is with Abhiraj Bau from Urban Company. Stay tuned for more updates. Thank you and stay safe.